Hello and welcome to Satv's International Affairs Special Edition. My name is Rashid Kanchan. I'll be at your host, and we have a very distinguished professor, Professor Shahiduzzaman. He is very outspoken personality on international affairs, economy, relationship, trade, tariffs and conflicts and war as well. We have also our international affairs commentator Shamsul Alam Pantho. First, let's begin from Shamsul Alam Pantho. What are the issues you want to pick for today's, because there are many breaking news as well?
Well, thank you, Mr. Kanchan. It's a wet afternoon, and of course, I'm glad to have Mr. Shahiduzzaman back in our studios. However, let me begin with some breaking news. We have Netherlands, who is banning two far-right Israeli ministers, Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, for their genocide in Gaza. So it's safe to say that people are now growing this conscience. And aside from this, starvation had claimed 7 more lives in Gaza. And of course, as you know, as we've seen just earlier this week, Turkey, EU and Arab League, along with 16 other major nations, endorsed the New York Declaration. It is for a push for the two-state solution to be implemented. Aside from this, USA and India do share good friendship between one another, but as far as I know, Donald Trump's administration has announced 25% tariff on India.
So it's a big news because 25% for India will be intolerable, because Indian business margin with GST, it will be a mixed reactions.
Yes.
Soon we'll get. But I want to draw the attention of Professor Shahiduzzaman. He is really outspoken on Israel and Palestine issues, sir. Sir, first France, then it was Britain, I mean UK, now Canada is considering to declare Palestine as a sovereign entity. What would be the consequences with the NATO alliance, American alliance, and what would be the activities of Israeli lobbies around the globe?
Thank you. Thank you. That's a very broad question, but it has implications. These are dramatic turn of events. Considering Europe, in the recent past, we have only seen Ireland, Portugal forthcoming. They were minor members of the EEC. Now we see 2 of the most important members, Britain and France, and even Canada, going forward to recognize Palestine. This would be a confirmation of the fact that, after all, the two-nation theory might see the light of the day. In the recent past, because of the elimination of so many people in Gaza, it seemed that the very concept of a Palestinian state would fade away. And over that, the attitude of President Trump to convert Gaza into a holiday resort and to transfer the entire Gaza population off to another country, that was the most depressing news that could have happened. But ultimately, what we see is that it's because of the excesses committed by Netanyahu, who simply wouldn't see any rationale, despite the isolation of Israel in terms of global public opinion. The attitude of Netanyahu to continue the killings, to bar the transfer of aid into Gaza, and to totally disregard the sentiments of the Arab people, even the American allied states in the Arab world like Egypt and Qatar. All of it had turned some of the European nations, the mainstream European nations, including Canada, to ponder over their own national interests. Over and over that, there was this huge impact of public opinion in Europe, especially in England, France, Canada. Public opinion, the universities had been so deeply concerned about the violation of human rights that all of that began to affect the decision-making process of running governments. So this is clearly a slap on Trump's face. It shows that President Trump has to put a stoppage in terms of the way he gave a blank check to Netanyahu. It would also sober down the Israeli lobby in the United States, which had played a double standard, verbally showing a great deal of sympathy for the plight of the Gaza people, and yet in operational terms continuing to tolerate the excesses committed by the Netanyahu government. So now there seems to be some sort of a distancing between President Trump and Netanyahu. President Trump has been overwhelmed by the reality of imposing tariffs on states, and his hands are all tied up. Plus the very fact that he couldn't make any breakthrough in Ukraine, and he has found President Putin to be totally unresponsive to his idea of the survival of the Ukrainian state. That has rattled him very badly. And so we see now that the European countries, especially Canada, France, Britain, they do see that their respective governments would lose the support, and there is already an impact in the United Kingdom and in Canada from the opposition parties to change the foreign policy posture. So I would say that we see faint hopes for a Palestinian state. I would use the word faint because of the fact that if you consider the conceptual perception of recognizing a state, it needs to be backed by real territorial possessions. Unfortunately, the territory of Palestine has been so badly, turned into Bantustans, as you used the term, the pockets of territory, which really makes it impossible to consider having a viable state. And then there is the financial issue that the Palestinian state concept has to be backed by a great pumping of resources in order to reconstruct the damage that has been done by the Israeli army. So from that point of view, I would say that the very creation of division within the NATO, the very fact that this is a major area for NATO's global policy, this reality has been created in a way where the Americans, especially the Trump administration, has to consider the future viability of NATO. And from that point of view, I don't think the United States can ignore the fact of the reality of a Palestinian state anymore.
Right.
But it would be very interesting to say how President Trump would revert his position, earlier position of ignoring the idea of a Palestinian state, whether he really changes his attitude towards Gaza and he shows a genuine consideration for rebuilding Gaza, which would again make it possible for the Gaza inhabitants to return there.
A complete picture has come from your delivery, sir. I want to include one question for Shamsul Alam Panthu. The job was supposed to be done by the Arab leaders first, because Palestine is a Muslim country. Palestine is struggling since last 90 years, fighting with evils like Israel. The job is doing by the Westerners. How do you see this?
Well, Mr. Kanchan, Mr. Shahiduzzaman was telling how Donald Trump and how his support of Israel as of recent has been very detrimental to the lives lost. The casualty figure is well above 60,000 casualties, which is of course very heinous and very drastic to imagine. And not only so, right now most of the foreign leaders of various countries are coming forth as to recognize the state of Palestine. We understand that the Palestinians have become a forced ethnic group, a minority if you would like to say, in their own country. And of course many years of fighting, many years of conflicts in that region has led to the drastic situation we see today. Of course, we've seen Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of UK, meeting Donald Trump in Scotland, and immediately after so, UK's Foreign Minister, Mr. Lammy, had said at the conference in New York that they will be recognizing Palestine, and while doing so, Donald Trump had a fallout with Mr. Keir, saying that he is not in that camp, using these exact words. And he said that with Mr. Keir saying the recognition of Palestine, he is awarding Hamas. So the Western rhetoric on this issue is that it's not Israel versus Palestine, it's Israel versus Hamas. Now, the Arab leaders are trying their level best to engage in a disarmament of this Hamas faction. And in various commentators and guests, even on our show, has said that in internal Palestine government of quite so other groups as well, Hamas and
Al-Fatah
and Hamas, they don't see eye to eye, and this is where the nation remains divided quite so, and which allows Israel to be poking innocent women and children around in the region. Of course, the daily death toll is increasing as we wait for the UN General Assembly to take place in September. We will only see how much recognition shall be there to protect, aid and reconstruct Gaza to what it was previously.
Sir, I just want to ask a question to you. You see the PLO, Palestine Liberation Organization's president is Mahmoud Abbas, but he is pretty silent in this issue while Israeli armies are attacking and killing people in Gaza. And Shamsul Alam Pantho says that they have the division, Al-Fatah and Gaza, and Israel is taking the advantages. Why this small country is divided? Why Mahmoud Abbas is silent? And what you expect from this United Nations General Assembly in September upcoming months?
Okay. Now, as far as Mahmoud Abbas is considered, you know, the first problem is his age factor. He is absolutely almost senile, and the Palestinian Authority have earned a great deal of disrepute for the corruption within. You know, they don't have the support, although this is the official organization to represent a future Palestinian state, it simply doesn't have the popular backing from the people, and especially it's because of the fact that they're considered to be in the pocket of the Western elite. And on the other hand, the Palestinian authorities and Mahmoud Abbas have served as lackeys of the United States, especially the Israeli lobby, in many ways in order to win curry favor. Now, on the other hand, the Hamas, despite the destruction committed by Israel and an effort to eliminate Hamas, has won the hearts of the Palestinian people. They have genuinely sacrificed, they have genuinely built the military wing, and they have been the driving force behind forcing the creation of a Palestinian state. Israel has been genuinely scared of the Hamas, and Hamas wouldn't, you know, make its hands feel clotted by trying to attach themselves with the corrupt Palestinian authorities or with Mahmoud Abbas. So I don't see this as a very great, you know, divisive force, because in any case the Palestinian authorities under Mahmoud Abbas is almost like being isolated. They don't have any substantive impact, neither do they have any desire to, you know, to use the military arm if necessary. They are almost like a puppet of the Western powers. On the other hand, despite the fact that all the rhetorics go on to destroy Hamas, you see, the problem is the greatest deficit of the Israeli authorities is that when they talk about eliminating Hamas, they really neglect the fact they can kill people, they can remove the structures, but they cannot destroy the spirit that backs the Hamas and the Hamas people. A lot of the members from the Hamas may have died, may have been, you know, sort of thrown out of the region, but the fact is that there is still that power to reorganize, there is still the power to convert, and one cannot forget the fact that despite all the American propaganda and Israeli, you know, display of confidence, Iran has again re-emerged as an extremely important, even more powerful than ever before in terms of its missile capability, especially its hypersonic missiles capability. The greatest force that would enable the future of Hamas to be reborn again is the strength of Iran. And, you know, despite all the propaganda, it is almost certain that the Chinese have helped Iran so greatly through a direct railway connection and through a process of continuous support. Chinese ships are already there in the Mediterranean. A strong Chinese support for the Hamas and for Iran would mean, on retrospect, a strong chance for Hamas to re-emerge and to be relevant. I would say that it's this strength, this tremendous potential for Iran to create a huge stock of hypersonic missiles. That would mean that Israel's Iron Shield would become irrelevant. The recent war has proved the most powerful fact that the Iron Shield, which has been the main force of deterrence, is no longer effective. And on the other hand, Iran has the strong backing of not just China, it's the Russians, it's President Putin, who recognizes the fact that his failure to make Trump compromise on Ukraine has now convinced President Putin that he cannot go on ignoring a genuine friend like Iran, which stood by Russia in its worst times. So now, apart from China, even the Russians are forthcoming. I can see a future where the Israelis would only have to pay a very huge price, and I don't see any future for Netanyahu. This was the time for him to give up the idea of using force. This was the time now for him to genuinely recognize the two-state theory, but he has not done so. He is calling his own destruction.
Sir, this morning I was watching one of the very famous news network in USA, the Fox. Fox is patronized by the Republicans. Fox is now criticizing Trump's policy on Netanyahu, I mean on Israel. They are saying Donald Trump intervened to Iran. They stopped Iran, but Donald Trump has not the power, even the plan to intervene to the proxies of Iran like Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis, Iraqi militias, Syrian militias, IS. That means United States has to continue its fight and support to Israel. Is it practically possible?
Well, thank you, Mr. Kanchan. As far as I know, for the last couple of months, we've seen the unwavering support of the US between Israel and Israel's escalations on multiple fronts, one with Iran, one with the innocent Palestinians, and continuously so. The White House and Donald Trump's administration has unwavering support for Benjamin Netanyahu's administration. And it is now becoming a matter of concern to the households of America. They understand that the supreme leader inside America is looking at various war fronts abroad before bringing in questions of domestic importance. We've seen massive ICE anti-immigration arrests that happened in various cities across the United States, which was a very drastic move that Donald Trump had taken part in. Much of the immigrants that were there were then boarded onto military planes before having them deported to their respective origin countries. So such an important event definitely shows which direction America is going to follow. And even so, we've seen how Donald Trump had himself in a scandalous event with the Jeffrey Epstein files. I was actually talking to Norman Floyd Barnes yesterday, and he said that Republicans are now growing concerned that the government must show transparency in order to have the people's mandate with them. Of course, we know even 1 year ago in Bangladesh how the people's mandate is the biggest mandate any government can have. And people were united then, and I'm sure in America, if they continue their support of killing innocent children and women in the Gaza Strip, much of the American population, ones with conscience, will definitely question Donald Trump's such policies. This is only his 6th month that we're seeing. I wonder what he'll establish in the next 3.5 years.
Sir, as you raised about the Donald Trump and his second term administration, I want to go to the expert. Sir, Donald Trump means United States of America. America means Donald Trump, and Trump is putting all Trumps to all systems like trade, tariffs, wars, negotiations, everything. He has become one-man show. we don't see this time too much Marco Rubio on the scene. We don't see other his allies or his colleagues in the world stage. Why he has become one-man show?
You see, the problem is Trump hasn't learned anything from the lessons of his loss of the presidency last time. This time, he is carrying the burden of being a convict president. It is unprecedented in the history of the United States. Plus, he is isolated in the US Congress. You see, the Congress, the Republicans have to think of re-election 2 years from now. And there are radicals in the Republican Party, the ultra-rightists, who had blindly backed Israel. But right now, except for a few weird, first generation migrants like Senator Ted Cruz and Margaret Green and a few others, the entire Republican Party is now concerned about disciplining Trump. And yet, Mr. Trump goes to Scotland and he goes to Qatar. And in Qatar, I have heard that the Amir of Qatar has gifted him with a presidential plane costing $400 million. He is receiving gifts. He's gone to Scotland, and I think it's about $2 billion worth of a golf course that he's purchased. These are absolutely
optics,
unacceptable in terms of the realities that the United States people are facing right now. There is huge unemployment. There are great threats of, from other countries in terms of the way Trump is imposing tariff barriers, and he is eventually being forced to back off. So this one-man show, the display of this insanity, going to Scotland to play golf, and these are absolutely unprecedented. On the other hand, you see there is this rise of a new trend. The very concept of a Muslim mayor in New York City has been the reverse trend of rethinking about the Palestinians, about the status of Islam, Muslims in the United States. The morning shows the day, in the sense that I can foresee within a year from now, Trump's acceptability to the US Congress would be very marginal. He would have his support, I believe. There is that conservative right which supports him blindly, and he has a few ideas, policies that keeps the mainstream rich Americans gaining. The tax structure is such that it still favors the rich. But on the other hand, I can see the Democrats emerging in a very constructive manner. I can see Trump getting isolated within NATO, and perhaps his entire, he has faced a dilemma of being really given a boot by the American judicial system during the period before he became president. I can foresee him getting into trouble again from the US judiciary.
Sir, if I just add, he said he will make America great again, and now people are seeing that he is trying to make Donald Trump great again.
Exactly. You can see recent records. American airports are becoming increasingly, travel law and the tourist free. Even the Canadians ignore the United States. Never has the United States suffered from so much humiliation in terms of tourist attraction. President Trump is learning gradually. His only success, I think, is the way he treated India. The Indians have been forced to revert their approach to industry. The Indians have been forced to swallow the bitter pills. But the way that President Trump has thrust many of the countries, like Bangladesh being forced to purchase 25 Boeings, it's of course over a very extended period of time. The Indians have been forced now to commit themselves to buy 100 Boeings, which is going to be ridiculous considering the image of the Boeing company. Even a country like Vietnam is being thrust with a dilemma of buying 25 Boeings. These are all made in Trump's head policies. They don't have any chance to last much longer. I can see economists, sensible economists, who will turn their back around Trump very soon.
So he is working as a salesman, not as a president. What's
Exactly.
your opinion? He's doing for sale to his products, to his counterparts.
Well, he's trying to protect his seat of the presidency, and of course, Mr. Shahiduzzaman picked out on various issues. I'll also add on to the tourism issue. Somewhere online, I've read that from now on, if anyone wishes to visit America, whether on any means, tourist or business alike, they will have to pay, I think, upwards of $200 for an entry. So he is making sure that America is garnering a lot of profit from their multiple sources of income. One would be applying such a fee, entry fee into a country like America. I've been to America, and what I realize is that it's a country full of diversity, full of people from outside. It's not only that you'll see Eurasians there or you'll see Caucasians there. It's a very diverse economy, and right now that very diverse culture of people are under threat given such policies by Donald Trump.
So if the most powerful man on this planet acts like this, so this will be the inspiration for other leaders around the globe. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the time to go for a break. We'll be coming soon. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the International Affairs Show from SATV. Sir, we want to look at the South Asia or East Asia. Recently, world have been witnessed the confrontation between two neighboring countries, Thailand and Cambodia, and suddenly this is already stopped. But the United Nations and US has got a huge attention in this particular. How this confrontation can give a different dimension of world politics, especially to corner or to promote China.
Okay, you've got the right point at the end. It is a question of, I think it has broadened into a question of a prestige game between China and the United States. China has been backing the weaker side militarily, Kampuchea. Unfortunately, Kampuchea doesn't even have a proper air force. On the other hand, taking advantage of Kampuchea's weak air power, the Thais have a formidable air power. Almost the entire air fighter force is equipped by American jet fighters. The United States have always treated Thailand as a very loyal ally, and the Thais are going to undertake a transition very soon. Interestingly enough, is the ruling families of Thailand and Kampuchea are linked to each other.
Yes.
They are related.
Yes.
And there is also, it is a question of family prestige right now. The Kampuchean government feels very threatened by the fact that their long frontier with boundaries with Thailand be compromised in any way. It has been quite a long time since the early part of this century. This border conflict has been going on. It did not gain much publicity in the international news media, largely because of the fact that Thailand had deliberately chosen to keep a low profile on this border problem in order to ensure that the Thai policy of encouraging tourism is not in any way affected. But now this has come, interestingly enough, the point of conflict has been the issue of a Hindu temple, and you might have seen it on television. It's a beautiful temple going back to almost the 8th or 9th century AD, yes. Which carries a lot of meaning in terms of historical depth and future tourist attraction, especially from India, which has a large Hindu population which traces back mythology onto this part of the world. But Thailand has been very allergic to the fact that its territory has been affected. This issue had gone to the International Court of Arbitration, and Thailand had won the case. But on the other hand, it has been unable to retrieve the temple. On the other hand, the Kampucheans treat it as a prestige issue. I think they may have been encouraged by the Chinese. For China, Kampuchea's sovereignty is important because of its strategic location. The geopolitics of the region require that Kampuchea enjoys a great deal of autonomy in terms of its military relationship with Thailand. Had Kampuchea been left alone, Thailand would have taken advantage militarily and would have taken over the adjacent territories, and it would have been a one-way imposition. But the fact remains that the United States wouldn't encourage a confrontation. The US has been encouraging mediation. Thailand has refused any mediation because of the fact that it is a question of, within the ASEAN, it is a question of Thailand's sense of prestige, that it is a very powerful military power within the ASEAN. Thai military also has a control over the adjacent ocean. It would like to see a great deal of control over the excess of the Kampuchean Navy in terms of the territorial waters around. But China hasn't really been very encouraging in terms of making Thailand seek a compromise which would force it to give away land.
But sir, Thailand has a history of peace. Thailand is a peaceful nation. Why Thailand becomes so aggressive to a neighboring country, comparatively poor than Thailand? Why? Is this a global politics indications that United States and China are going to engage for both the parties?
Yes, that's a very valid question, and I think it makes a lot of sense to look at it that way, that the United States and China are confronting the question of the Straits of Malacca and the adjacent territorial dispute that China defends in terms of taking over Taiwan. Now, Thailand has always, as you have said, been pursuing a policy of encouraging greater dialogue and communication. But the fact is that Thailand has had territorial problems with its neighbors. On the west, Thailand continues to face the Karen-Kachin problem with Myanmar, and Thai troops very often enter Myanmar and support the Kachin insurgency. Very often, you know, it's a relationship of war and peace with neighboring Burma. Now that Thailand has been thrust into a situation where it's a question of prestige, it's a question of regaining territory which historically Thailand has never been a colony. It has always enjoyed. So when the Kampucheans under the French colonial rule crawled into Thai territory, the Thais draw this perspective that, you know, we lost, it was our territory, it is the French colonial rule which had made Kampuchea encroach into Thai territory. And besides, because of the historical importance of these adjacent lands, the richness of the culture, the remains of the Hindu civilization in that area is one of the richest in the world. These are UN recognized tourist sites which have great potential to grow. And Thailand having been a country which has always thrived on earning foreign exchange through tourism, wouldn't like to give away those adjacent lands.
So far the history says Thai monarchy is one of the richest monarchy in the world, one of the longest monarchy in the world. One of the monarchy never face any context. And the Thai ruling party, Shinawatra family, is also have a huge influence on Thai politics because of their business, international connections, peers. Why this young Prime Minister Shinawatra, Mrs. Shinawatra, has done a big mistake talking over phone with the Cambodian leader and made so many problems with the Thai people and mistrust complaint. What is your observation on this Thai politics, internal politics and the problem with Cambodia?
Well, it carries huge significance as it's so close to our region as well, Southeast Asia. And of course, when Paetong Tang Shinawatra, when she had a talk with military brass of Cambodia, what happened was the people in Thailand had slowly started to mistrust what kind of policies and what kind of leader she would become. Later on, of course, now there is a interim head of state, and Mrs. Paetong Tarn is now the cultural minister in Thailand. So definitely she has taken a step away from the prime ministership. And at this moment, PM Anwar Ibrahim of Malaysia had called in a truce. It would be the first of what Malaysia can do in the region. Now, Malaysia is a big player. It has East Malaysia as well as West Malaysia. So they are quite the big force in Southeast Asia. I used to live there as well. And from what I understand is, such a escalation between Cambodia and Thailand would only prompt China and America to get involved. As you know, that the South China Sea remains very volatile as China claims the 9-dash line over the entire South China Sea, while Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand and others that are there have been seen complaining about this issue for various months and years now. So my take would be that the escalation has now turned down, but there are no promises how long this ceasefire between Cambodia and Thailand will last. However, Malaysia had played a big part, as like the US does with India and Pakistan. Malaysia took over that duty to brokerage this ceasefire, and of course I hope that it will last long enough for them, both Cambodia and Thailand, to solve their disputes peacefully.
Very, very good explanation. We want to look at South Asia, but South Asia is also connected with international affairs like United States, China, Brazil, Russia. As you said in your opening remarks that United States finally imposed 25% tariffs on India. India is a big exporting country now to United States. India has a huge trade with United States of America. So do you think India will be discouraged to develop its business with USA and will be motivated to restart business with Russia, Brazil, South Africa and China, because they have an agreement with BRICS?
Well, it would be difficult. You see, the Indians have already gone a long way ahead in developing business with Russia, despite the sanctions, purchasing oil from Russia at lesser prices. Now the United States and India have very deep-rooted business ties. Indian economy depends a lot on export to the United States, and the Americans insist that it's been greatly a one-way traffic and that the Indians should really fall back and import more of American goods. Now, if the Indians try to move away from the United States, it would be an extremely risky proposition for the Indian economy. But then in the Indian Parliament, the last few days have been very stormy. You know, the Congress leaders, especially Rahul Gandhi, many and other Congress leaders have been absolutely blasting the Modi government for the way it has been humiliated in by the United States, and especially the way the President Trump has treated Pakistan and has directly the Indian Congress leaders feel that India has totally failed in trying to uphold the gains that this present BJP government had promised in terms of, you know, President Trump becoming president, that everything would be very cozy. The whole thing has been reversed, and I was amazed by the silence of Prime Minister Modi, his foreign minister and the home minister in the Indian Parliament. They were just brutalized by the Congress leaders. Now, what I want to say is that in the near future, the United States is most unlikely to be any merciful towards India. President Trump has shown no sign to, you know, bow down in terms of India trying to develop these oil ties, buy oil from Russia. There are also indications that India has been showing new gestures towards Iran to buy Iranian oil, although Iran has been very, very skeptical about the Indians, the way they betrayed Indian
and they
people.
supported Israel.
And they, in terms of favoring Israel, and Indian spies spying for Israel, some of who were in fact killed, instantly punished by the Iranian government for treachery. So overall, India is facing a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it does not enjoy any sort of likelihood of improved ties with China. The Chinese simply do not, you know, have anything to do with India in terms of the gains that China has made in its military ties with Pakistan. The Indians have been isolated by the United States. I can see the worst thing that the Indians have done is failing to win over the American right. You know, especially the US Republican senators in the right, they simply absolutely hate India for its close ties with President Putin. And it's because of the right, the extreme right, that President Trump has shown no mercy to India. I don't think Modi would ever be welcome in the United States as long as the BJP is in power.
Sir, you have given us some indications to discuss more. I want to come to our international affairs commentator Shamsul Panthu.
Thank you.
See how India treated its neighboring countries, destroyed all basic relationships with all countries like Afghanistan, Pakistan, China, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Maldives, and last was Bangladesh. And India is not a country, it is just a federal union, sir. Am I right? Exactly. India is a country of 33 countries or 34 countries. Some commentators says the Modi administration and his allies destroyed the relationship with all foreign countries neighboring to India, and they have destroyed more relationships from Delhi to all states.
Yes.
That means Modi 3.0 will be the ending of BJP era. What do you think, sir?
Well, that was very drastic how you've asked me, but I want to point out the double story that they try to play. Over the last 15 years, they've always called us our friends, but while doing so, they've made sure that we fall on our knees. They try to do the similar instigation in the world stage as well. Why I say this? If you look at their relationship in the BRICS countries, you've seen Narendra Modi visiting Lula da Silva in Brazil, which had, of course, become a warning sign for America. And he had said any country that aligns with the BRICS nation shall face an additional 10% tariff. Donald Trump, in his first presidency, was visiting India, and the Howdy Modi campaign, their relationship in front of the camera was so extravagant. But right now, that relation seems strained due to this only one point, is that when the Indian government want to do better for their people, they try to understand where India stands in the world global dominance. But right now, one time they're trying to woo the Americans, another time they're trying to woo the BRICS nations. They see themselves in between a very hard position between two rocks. Why I say this? You have America on one side, you have Russia on the other. America detects any country doing business, doing trade with Russia, they will face the brass of
100% tariff.
100% tariff. That is happening on Russia. Yeah. So, of course, right now India should focus on its own region before it can think of regions such as America, regions far beyond its reach like Russia. Of course, right now the relationship and ties between even our nation, Bangladesh and India remains so far strained as the BJP government pushes majority or minority Muslim Assamese people into Bangladesh. So they are doing their own ethnic cleansing in their own country on their own people.
See, sir, this is the difference between the leadership of an educated people and a tea wala. Anyway, we don't want to defame anyone. I have the last question to Professor Shahiduzzaman. He was talking about the Bangladesh's capacity on nuclear or atomic issues, which has become very popular, and it was very highly discussed subject since couple of months. So recently in Kunming in China's province, there was a meeting between Pakistan, Bangladesh and China inviting these two countries to come in a trade and military relationships. My question is, among these three countries except Bangladesh, both are nuclear country. How do you see these ties will help Bangladesh to be a nuclear atomic nation?
Well, actually, I would not be very vocal on using such expression as Bangladesh becoming an atomic nation. What I would like to suggest is that in current times, there are better ways to secure your survival vis-a-vis a very dangerous country like India. The Chinese, one of the foremost Chinese strategic experts, just about a month ago had made a comment. He talked about integrating the air defense system of China, Pakistan and Bangladesh. The idea of integration of the air defense system would imply that Bangladesh should undertake considerable reforms in terms of upgrading its air power. That would also include the question of gaining some sort of a nuclear umbrella, if it is relevant, that would involve China and Pakistan. Now, we know that our air capability is very poor. It's hopeless. In fact, we have old planes that are not worth flying even, and they are very accident prone. In recent times, China has shown a great deal of interest in Bangladesh's military and economic security. This government has gone a great deal ahead after Chief Advisor Yunus's visit to China, where the Tista project feasibility plan has been offered to China for a 50-year period. Only day before yesterday, the Chinese ambassador surprised me when he said that we are ready, it's up to Bangladesh to sign the agreement on Tista. Now, this was of course a diplomatic hint that, I have this feeling that somehow there is stagnancy. It went up a great deal. There was the possibility of Pakistan getting involved in Bangladesh's security in terms of offering not as in a coordinated effort to join up with China and integrate the air defense system. It had gone some degree, and suddenly we don't hear anything much about the question of the Chinese umbrella. There was the possibility of Lalmonirhat being developed as an air base, and that the Chinese would go ahead and help. I was very surprised that the Foreign Affairs advisor had made a remark.
You actually ended the program with a lot of big question mark why we don't see the practical progress. I think
happening.
our politicians, our policy makers and the people who are running the country will definitely think for a rich, integrated, stronger nation for future to face our enemies. Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you on Sunday.